Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are and when you're watching this. Welcome back to Flywheel Films, and welcome to another video with kind of an alternate solution. Of course, I am full send on the Miata game, but I like exploring the alternates. We've previously done an episode on my friend Luke's Porsche Boxster, and I filmed it right before he sold it, which is, we're still all crying about that. He got a new car, so I'll eventually film that, but fortunately, I'm not filming this for sale because my friend Ryan just bought it. This is the Honda CR-Z, the spiritual successor, I guess, to the CRX, AKA an economical, sort of fun, small, compact hatchback. In fact, CR-Z stands for Compact Renaissance Zero, which is, yeah, marketing terms, I guess, but it's kind of a cool name. It's kind of a cool car. And honestly, if you were shopping for a car back in 2012-ish, like these two cars are almost the same model year. Mine's 2012 Miata. This is a 2013 CR-Z. And yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. So, and what's also interesting is, I mean, two seats. We don't get back seats in the US, right?
Correct.
That's right. So overseas, they did have a 2+2 configuration. This is literally just two seats. That's two seats. This is a manual. That's a manual. That's right. This is like one of the first actual manual hybrids, which is pretty awesome. So let's dive right in and see what the CR-Z is all about. So Ryan, welcome to the channel and congrats on your new car.
Thank you.
It's very interesting because on this channel there's a lot of, I don't want to say EV haters, they're just not really, it's not really the thing. But that's what you and I have worked in the past, is EV-centric world. And you actually sold a Tesla to get this.
That's right. It didn't make sense for me to have the Tesla just with how little I was driving and insurance costs and all that stuff. My girlfriend actually still has a actually mini electric, so still got electric in the household, but I got this and I'm really happy with it. It feels like it's a pretty good balance between trying to get a Miata, but not being quite able to have the amount of practicality that I need.
Right, so that's one thing I want to showcase is they're actually comparable in size, and even we were just looking at your wheels and tires, like that's the exact wheel and tire size. I don't know about offset, but size and everything of like the base model Miata of this year. So the NC generation Miata versus the CR-Z genuinely could have been cross-shopped. I'd be curious to see like if anyone, you know, almost 15 years ago were cross-shopping these, at least over a decade ago. That'd be pretty interesting, but this is a really sweet car. I've always been a fan of these. I always think they're interesting looking. You don't see that many of them, which is why I think they're kind of fun. And I know you were actually considering a Miata, and you still maybe are, but I guess practicality-wise, is that kind of why you went this direction?
Exactly. I'd love to get a Miata. Someday I will have one. However, I needed something that could carry me, my girlfriend, and our dog.
That's right, you have a dog.
And we also have family out in California, so we'd be taking this car out. Wouldn't be able to do that with a Miata.
Right.
But this feels like about as close as I can get.
Yeah.
Without having a Miata, and it does everything that I need it to do, and it's still pretty fun.
Yeah, so I guess we could talk about, you know, more stuff on the road, but just walking around it, quintessential Honda design from this era, which I really do like a lot of people like Hondas. And this is the third hybrid Honda made. There was the Insight and there was the hybrid Civic. This is kind of like a miniature hybrid hatchback Civic. In fact, even from the side, it looks like they just kind of stopped making the car right about there. They could have kept going for some reason. But let's actually look at the storage capacity. Do you know the numbers off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's about 25 cubic feet.
Wow.
And I actually do have a spare, so
oh, wow,
there
really?
is...
no way.
Yeah, there's a little bit of space underneath there as well. And yeah, it's plenty of space.
So much space. So of course I've done, I guess probably 50,000 miles of road trips in the Miata so far. And I've gotten creative. With something like this, it'd be nice because I could just throw stuff in here and go without being as creative and Tetris-like in my approach.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the biggest pluses with this, just the true practicality, along with a lot of the efficiency, which is really great. As you can see, hybrid.
Hybrid in blue text, very of the age.
And around town, I'm getting 35, 40 miles per gallon. It's fantastic, really enjoying that.
That's really impressive. That's one thing the Miata can't do. The ND somehow impressively can get close to that if you really, you know, baby it. but how many people are babying their Miatas, I guess? Some people are. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I guess that's your gas cap. And I can see why or how other markets did fit a back seat, but it's kind of hilarious that they tried because it is a tiny car.
I can show you. It's really, really not
Huge
something that you
coupe
do.
doors, which is cool.
Really nice, easy to get in and out, and
Oh my gosh.
little cubbies that you can use, so
Yeah.
plenty of practicality. And you could see how there could be seats. I don't know if anyone would be able to use them actually, but...
And genuine question, how's the stereo? I mean, I saw like a little sub back there. Like, there seems like there's more speakers in this than I've seen in some cars that are bigger.
To be honest, not super great. However, I think that has to do with the fact that I'm doing it over USB, and I think that it's just not super great quality with that.
Sometimes they compromise in the amplifier built in that I've found. Like when I replaced the head unit in the Miata, the factory stereo got better. So that would be interesting if this was like a limitation.
Exactly. I've heard about that a little bit here and there on the forum, so I think it's probably a similar case.
Yeah. And so on that note of the forums, actually, obviously the Miata has a huge ownership base of people that love it. How has been your research on the forums? Because you're a well-researched individual. There's a reason you bought this. You didn't just buy it without looking it up, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You're kind of a data guy, so.
Yeah, it was really well considered. Again, I would have loved to have a Miata. I just couldn't do it. I needed a little bit more practicality. So this is basically as impractical as I could get while still covering all the bases.
Like, do you know any numbers on how many they sold, how many people are there, and how many people actually like live in the forums or Reddit or anywhere?
Right, yeah. So I think they sold just under 30,000-ish. I think that's globally. So not super popular, but not terribly rare either. There is a forum for it. It's not the most active, but there's definitely a few dozen really active users all around, and people are super knowledgeable. And of course, the car's been around for well over a decade, and there's just all the information you could ever want or need. Wherever you can find it, it's somewhere in there. So that's been really nice.
Yeah. So is there anything you've done to it, like modification wise? I know these probably don't have the biggest aftermarket. They're probably not heavily modified in general. They also don't really necessarily need to be. Like, it's got a cool little spoiler in the back here, like things that people would normally do to their cars. And what's hilarious that I'm just now noticing is the wipers like on nearly a vertical or a horizontal surface.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, I think some people do a little bit of cosmetic stuff. I've done nothing to it so far. People will change wheels, they'll add a spoiler and stuff. And one of the big ones that people will do is doing a K swap. So just completely swapping out the engine, getting rid of the hybrid, and instead of the base 130 horsepower, you get something closer to 200 plus horsepower, and that really livens it up. And from what I've heard, it's like a CRZ SI that they never made.
That would be wild. And what's funny is a lot of people actually think the K-swap in a Miata is also one of the holy grails, regardless of generation. NC and B, like people do it and people love it. So that'd be hilarious to have actually two of these, or both of these cars by that. I mean, and kind of a two-car solution because one is hilariously more practical than the other. But like you said, this is not that practical. So does your girlfriend's Mini have more space?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
More,
that's funny, that sentence.
Yeah. It's also dimensionally smaller. The Mini's just super efficient with its space. It's really impressive.
Yeah. But this thing is just so cool. So I guess enough drooling over it. I'm just gonna drive it and see what I think. And obviously this is on a pedestal, but this is always one that I've been curious about, intrigued by. Like I said, the last video I did comparing to the Miata was the Boxster. And they're not meant to be comparisons as like genuine, like apples to apples cross shopping. They're not gonna be neck and neck in any regard. It's just an interesting alt. If you wanna drive a manual 2-seat car, there's so many options. And sure, this makes less power than the Miata, but maybe you're cross-shopping an NA Miata with one of these. Then the power is about the same, pretty close. So
yeah,
this will weigh a bit more, but has a bit more power, so probably comparable feel. So let's go put that to the test. All right, firing it up, clutch in, twist the key. Engine does rotor light. Does it ever start on just hybrid, or is that not this kind of hybrid?
No, not that kind of hybrid.
All right.
So always an engine.
Always an engine, but slightly more efficient engine. Speaking of engines, 1.5 liter, inline 4. I guess what's the power of just the engine? So total figures was 130 horsepower, 140 pound-feet of torque. And I guess we could do the math. The electric motor,
It's 22
22 horsepower, 15 kilowatts. So roughly 100 and, what was that?
108 horsepower.
108 horsepower. And I think this might be the same motor that was in the Honda Fit of the era, which, shout out to my friend Jackson, Colored in the Light. He's got a Honda Fit on his channel.
The fast life, the fast living. They see the ambition, they know I'm past driven.
This is kind of an interesting alt to that. And no offense, Jackson, this looks better. But he has double the seats, so that's,
It's true.
That's one thing.
Very practical.
But just immediate feel, this is comfortable. We got trucks flying in here. This is wild. And creeping around slowly in first gear, really not bad. I'm bummed I haven't driven that many manual Hondas of this era, because I really do like this era. And wow, the clutch feel is definitely, it's like a short clutch, I guess.
Yeah.
And trying to find the point of, oh, it seems to have, maybe he'll start assist.
It does, yes.
Nice, that's great. And wow, very lovely shifter feel. Like notchy and precise. You really know exactly what gear you're getting in. This is a pleasure to drive.
Yeah.
So you've been commuting in it for a while. I mean, how long have you had it, I guess? I should have started there.
A month and a half or so.
Okay, so it's still pretty fresh.
Yeah.
But you've gotten it around enough to like get a feel for it and enjoy it, I guess.
Certainly, yeah. And I also, I picked it up in Washington State, so drove it all the way back.
So that was a nice road trip.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous road trip, actually.
It was really nice.
I got to get up there with the Miata at some point. I finally flew up to Seattle, but that was just not the same, you know? Huge side visibility. I mean, part of that's our giant doors, which is perk of a sort of 2+, I'm going to call this a 2+0 coupe.
That's fair, that's fair.
Coupe. Gauge cluster is fascinating. It's a 3D effect, sort of like speedometer, set in between the tack. And, you know, very blue and green colors, which is very big for Honda of this era. Very easy to kind of rev match the downshifts, throw it into a corner. It really is just nice and planted. Like, it's not fast, but that's kind of not the point either. Kind of like, I mean, a lot of Miatas.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make your Miata faster and faster, but that's kind of not the point. That's why I'm on this road and not like just testing us on the highway.
Yeah, certainly. It's a lot of fun to be able to push it, and the limits are so low in this car. I love it. It's you're blasting down a canyon, and you look down at the speedometer, you're going like 4 over the speed limit.
Yeah. And that's what I am so drawn to by quote unquote underpowered cars, especially for us. We are up here at altitude. We're about 7,000 feet right now, and anything naturally aspirated is definitely slow. This is not a hybrid turbo system, it's just hybrid. Now the hybrid assist should help somewhat with the altitude. I'd be really curious to try this at sea level versus not, because I can tell a huge difference in any Miata, any straight naturally aspirated. But this being a hybrid is really fascinating. And I think it's fun because it is a relatively slow car, but the slow car fast mentality really comes from I can use all of the car. I enjoy taking fast cars up this road. I do all the time. I've tested a lot of cars for work up here, like the i4 M50, a lot of Porsches, Taycan, and also gas Porsches. They rip up this thing, but you are also not using the whole car. Like, you're using a percentage of it, and you're having fun, but like, there's something to be said about using the entire car. And going over bumps, the suspension's really compliant. I'm sure there's people who take their CRZs, maybe throw some coilovers on them, like make them almost autocross weapons.
Yes.
I could see that being fun in this car. It is relatively whippable, I would say. But it is a front-wheel drive platform. It's essentially the Civic platform, I'm guessing. I don't know what that platform's called necessarily, but it's pretty engaging. And I think the manual is for sure the way to go. Interesting with this, the manual was default, but you could option a CVT.
That's right, yeah.
If you had gotten a CVT, I would have just deleted your number or something. But
I actually drove a CVT one, actually.
Really?
And
how'd it compare?
I mean, less fun, but honestly, I was pretty impressed with the CVT. It doesn't get in the way, felt pretty natural.
Yeah.
It worked. Yeah,
a lot of,
not bad.
Yeah, a lot of modern cars have CVTs, and they're genuinely fine, and most people don't even care. but there is something to, especially living where we live with these kind of roads, having a manual, and this is a very, I'd say, easy to drive manual. I first learned on my brother Austin's Celica GTS from the 2000 model year. Not a good manual. In fact, that almost scarred me so much that I was like, oh, I don't actually want to drive manual. I'm glad I didn't use that car as a benchmark, but this is really engaging and just like a pleasure to cruise in. Really interesting. Like, I think a lot of Hondas from the early to mid-teens were trying things. There was that like 2015 Honda Accord, maybe a couple of model years that had like the weird display for when you turned only your right turn signal on and it would show that camera side. This is doing like very wild stuff with the cockpit, a lot of interesting buttons, a very clear kilometers per hour to miles per hour button to just switch that back and forth, I guess.
All the times you're doing that.
Yeah, I guess in case you take this car across the border to Canada. And then we have sport, normal, and econ mode. So I'm gonna pull over, let some traffic go by, and look at this here. Now what's nice about this is it's not too low to where it's compromised from an unusable standpoint. Because in Colorado, our roads are kind of rough. I do scrape the Miata quite a bit. But we've just been using normal mode. So I'm gonna throw it in sport mode and just see if I really feel a difference. The immediate difference is the gauge turned red. Econ is blue, normal is still blue. Ooh, Econ also limited the AC a little bit. It's
Yes.
pretty interesting. But sport, red gauges, you're ready for the track.
Getting serious.
Getting serious. But I'm endearing. I have endearing feelings towards these Honda interiors because they don't feel premium. The seats kind of squeak, but like also it's a comfortable seat. Like they're not compromising on every metric. They're just shaving costs where they can, giving that to the consumer. And I guess that you reap the benefits being the consumer.
Yeah, and having done a very long road trip in this, it's pretty comfortable doing 8-10 hour days in this. Not a problem.
Yeah. Great turning radius. I'd say maybe better than the Miata, actually. And let's just do a quick launch while no one's behind us. A little bit of wheel spin there. Red lines to about 6,250 RPM. Honestly, not bad. It's a Honda engine note. Some people complain about it. Others don't mind. I'm sure people throw an exhaust on there if they really want to. I think it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
it just depends what you want. And this car is so malleable that you can go the full tuner route. You could go JDM, bring it to the car shows. And what's cool is you could bring this to a Cars and Coffee, even lightly modified, and people would be so thrilled to see it. It's not like taking, like, I bet these are more rare than the S2000s that we see at a lot of car shows. So that's kind of intriguing to me. What's interesting with this is also, like we said, there's a 0.6 kilowatt hour battery, pretty small electric motor, 15 kilowatts. But that still does add up a bit. And there's even something, I forget the terminology, where if the battery is above 30% state of charge, and you're going more than 18 miles an hour, it gives you 5 seconds of boost.
Yes,
Does
the
that
little
sound
Sport Plus button right there.
Wow.
It's a little finicky, and it sometimes works, and you can feel it. It's kind of fun. It's just like a little bit extra push that you don't normally get.
That's hilarious.
It's so funny. I wish it were a little bit easier for me to figure out.
Right.
It feels like it sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But
Does that only happen in sport mode, or is that like just available anytime?
Anytime.
So you could be in economy mode and be like, actually, I'm going to pass someone.
Yeah, I highly recommend against economy mode.
This is just really slow.
It's brutal, yeah. Normal is plenty for anyone, I think.
So, hitting Sport Plus. I mean, I could definitely feel a little bit of a difference. And really all it says is on the very upper left, there's a battery display. It tells you the battery state of charge, and it says Sport Plus is ready. And when you hit Sport Plus, it just blinks. But it's not doing anything now. Oh, now it is. You're right, it's very finicky and quirky.
Yeah.
And again, endearing. It's kind of a hilarious car. But the gas mileage is very intriguing. I mean, there's so many people that would really benefit. And in fact, if I was less hard on myself, instead of dailying having only a Miata for the last 4 years until I got the Jeep, this would have been so much more practical and so much easier to road trip it. Miata's really not bad by myself, but the couple times I've road tripped with someone, then it's suddenly like Tetris Ultra Pro level, trying to figure out how to squeeze in the baggage. It always works out, but like this would be pretty relaxing, and it's just cool to see.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, a Miata is more of a sports car for sure, no doubt, but if you need something a bit more practical, I think this is a really great option.
Right, and yeah, the handling, if we do, definitely some body roll, but I would say less than a stock Miata, especially the base model. And what trim is this, by the way? There's like 2 or 3 trims available?
Yeah, there's this is the EX, the higher trim, and it has the navigation, which is still works.
EX with nav, that's kind of hilarious. But even just the handle dynamics, I mean, front wheel drive is definitely a different flavor than rear wheel drive. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worse, it really depends what you're looking for. But what's interesting about this is the battery is in the back. It's not a big battery, but that does add a bit more weight in the back. And this also being a sort of hatchback thing, there's just a bit more weight than if this had just been like a Civic coupe of this size, non-hybrid.
Right, it's got a 56-44 weight split, so a little bit front heavy, but pretty close to even.
And not as bad as some others, for sure.
Yeah, and when you push it hard, it definitely does understeer, but I imagine that could be solved fairly easily with some sway bars, a little bit of tuning of that. But
and even wheels and tires. I mean, those are huge things. I mean, I'm sure the same logic applies to what you would do for a Miata. Like most people's first recommended mods for a Miata, of course, that's a video I did recently. It was like sway bars, wheels and tires, call it a day. Like the power plant is really not worth chasing a lot. Like you said, K-swap is a huge upgrade, I guess you could say, but just handling dynamics, which we can take full advantage of on our mountain roads without a fast car, that's where I think I would do, I mean, that's where I would focus my energy. If I had one of these, first thing I would do is like wheels and tires, sway bars, and just see what that does to the car. Maybe suspension. I'm kind of in the unique camp where I did suspension in the Miata first, but sway bars is much cheaper. And I was interested, yeah, the engine cut out there for a second and then came back on.
Yeah, it's got an auto start stop and it's actually not too intrusive.
Yeah, it's very nice. Like and even on this rough gravel road, like it's really not too bad, which is helpful because our Colorado roads are terrible.
Yeah.
So glad you're enjoying driving it. I guess we'll park it and give some final thoughts, but I am really pretty happy.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
So that was actually pretty fun. I knew it'd be fine, but like I didn't expect it to be that fun. Maybe I should have, because it's small, lightweight. We didn't talk about the weight, but about 26 to 2,700 pounds, probably 2,700 because yours is the fully loaded one. That's not much heavier than the Miata. Granted, it's a bit less power, but I mean,
yeah, it's still a lot of fun. Slow car fast is always a great time. And yeah, there's a lot of fun quirks, little features, all the great stuff. Really makes it enjoyable. And if you need to have one car, I think this is a really great option.
I agree. Like this went from like on my radar to like, I have some people who are like, I kind of want a Miata, but it's just not quite practical enough. This went from on my radar to now an actual recommendation, like go find one. How much did you pay?
15,000, and it had 50,000 miles.
Wow, not bad.
Pretty good condition.
Yeah, so honestly, intriguing option, good fuel economy. Like you said, just a great all-around commuter that you can still have fun in. And a lot of people treat those cars separately. So it is definitely a solution. It is definitely an intriguing alternate. I'm curious what all of you guys think of the CRZ. Have any of you cross-shopped it with the Miata? And maybe you picked the Miata. If so, why? I mean, I probably know some of the answers for why, but also maybe you went the other way, or maybe you got both. I could see a perfect two-car garage with both. I'm intrigued by the light, I mean, relatively light, underpowered. I mean, K cars are still a dream, and I'm hoping to do some videos comparing K cars to the Miata. It's like not fully a comparison. It's just like, I'm reviewing this car in light of that car because that's my benchmark. So appreciate you guys watching and enjoying some CRZ time in the mountains, hoping to get more in the future. I'm sure we'll go on some cruises. It'd be fun to meet more CRZ owners.
Yeah.
And have you join some Miata owners, because No one cares. Like, we're not trying to be like exclusive out here. It's just like, oh, you have a fun small car? Join us. So join us next time, and we'll see you guys later.